Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the very foundation of Freemasonry. Now, I'm not talking about the impressive buildings or the famous members you might have heard of. We're going deeper, to the fundamental, unseen rules that define one of the world's oldest fraternities, the Masonic Landmarks.
So think about it for a second. How does an organization that spans hundreds of years, all across the globe, in countless different cultures, how does it stay the same? Well, the answer isn't something you can see or touch. It's in a set of ancient, unchangeable principles.
All right, let's get right into it. When you hear a Mason talk about landmarks, your mind might go to, historic buildings or monuments. But that's not what we're talking about here. Not even close. They're talking about something way more fundamental.
Honestly, the best way to think about a Masonic landmark is to think of it as the fraternity's DNA. You can't just decide to change a piece of it, because if you do, you don't have Freemasonry anymore. You've got something else entirely. It's the absolute unchangeable core of what it is.
So yeah, just to be super clear, forget about physical things like buildings and statues for a minute. Masonic landmarks live in the world of ideas. They are the foundational principles, the core rules, and the essential traditions that guide the whole fraternity.
And what's really fascinating is that for most of Masonic history, you couldn't find these rules written down in some official book. They were just known. They were understood, passed from one generation to the next through rituals and oral tradition. It was just woven into the very fabric of the craft.
But that all started to shift around the middle of the 19th century. In 1858, this Masonic scholar named Dr. Albert Mackey took on the massive task of trying to actually write down these unwritten rules. His list of 25 landmarks, well, it became the starting point for almost every debate on the topic ever since.
So even with Mackey's list, different Masonic groups around the world might argue a bit about the exact number or the specific wording. But there's a handful of these landmarks that are considered absolutely universal. These are the core pillars that everyone agrees hold the whole thing up.
First up, let's talk about the pillars that create the moral and spiritual foundation of the fraternity. You can think of these as the absolute deal breakers. Without these, the entire Masonic system kind of loses its purpose. So a belief in a supreme being, which is often called the grand architect of the universe, is completely non-negotiable in what's known as regular Freemasonry. And hand in hand with that, a volume of sacred law, whether it's a Bible, a Quran, a Torah, has to be open during their meetings. It's a powerful symbol that a higher moral code is guiding their actions.
Okay, so beyond that moral bedrock, you've got pillars that define the actual structure of Freemasonry itself. These are the ones that ensure the experience of becoming a Mason is consistent no matter where you are in the world.
And this structure is set in stone. A man's journey is always through these 3 specific degrees. And at the very core of that final degree is the allegorical legend of Hiram Abiff, a powerful story about integrity and fidelity that is absolutely central to Masonic philosophy.
The last group of these universal pillars defines the fraternity's traditional identity, which really boils down to how members recognize each other. And this, of course, brings us to the famous topic of Masonic secrets.
It's the question everyone wants to ask, right? Are they hiding ancient treasure maps, plans for world domination? Well, the reality, at least according to this landmark, is actually a lot more practical than that.
The secrecy landmark is all about the modes of recognition. We're talking about things like special handshakes, passwords, and signs. So it's not about hiding some grand conspiracy from the world. It's simply their traditional private way for Masons to prove to each other that they're part of the club.
Now, another one of these key landmarks that shapes the fraternity's traditional identity is that its lodges are made up solely of men. The sources point out that this is a core part of its ancient constitution, defining it as a brotherhood.
Okay, so these are clearly ancient rules. But why are they still guarded so fiercely today? What's the point now? Well, the answer is pretty simple. It's the very thing that holds the entire global fraternity together. You see, the landmarks create a kind of universal language. It means a Mason from New York can visit a lodge in Mumbai and recognize the same core values. They're an anchor to history, and they make sure the fraternity's moral compass doesn't just change with every new social trend.
But here it is. This is probably the most critical function they have. Following the landmarks is how the entire global network of Freemasonry actually governs itself. This is the mechanism that makes it all work.
And here's how that plays out. If a Masonic governing body, called a Grand Lodge, decides to change a core landmark, let's say they get rid of the requirement for a belief in a supreme being, well, other Grand Lodges around the world will immediately withdraw their recognition.
That first group then becomes irregular, and just like that, it's cut off from the worldwide Masonic community. It's the ultimate quality control system.
So when you really look at it, these landmarks aren't some dusty old rules. No way. They are active, living principles that are still shaping and preserving Freemasonry right here in the 21st century.
There is a quote from one of the sources that just says it all perfectly. They are the unseen pillars that give Freemasonry its unique character, its universality, and its timeless appeal. I mean, that's it right there, the unseen pillars. It's the invisible architecture holding the whole thing up.
And so that really leaves us with a final thought to chew on. In our world today, where it feels like everything is constantly in flux, what is the actual value of having a set of rules that are specifically designed to be unchangeable? It's a fascinating question, really, about that constant tension between tradition and progress.